Hello and welcome to episode 61 of the Adoption and Fostering podcast with our co-host who's giggling for some reason and myself, Scott Casson-Rene. Good evening, Mr. Coates.
Well,
why are you giggling?
Why am I giggling? I'm giggling because I'm thinking of an incident with my wife.
Okay.
No.
TMI.
Oh, maybe we should start again. No. How are you? I'll get to that incident because it's just embarrassing.
Okay.
How are you? Because there's lots going on. It's been really busy. I know you've got you've got a couple of weeks to go, and you're getting married. How's that? Or how's your plans going for that?
Well, as you know, we just literally come back from Thailand yesterday, and we're the removal company turned up today.
This was good planning. A great idea to do a podcast.
And you know what? I do not accept any responsibility for it because I didn't organise any of it.
Excellent.
And I would love to say it was one of my children, but it's not. So there's only one person left who we can assign blame to. So yes, it's a very, 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 very busy time. It's filled with lots of various different emotions and feelings, but hopefully when we get to that kind of
the 10th.
Yeah, the 10th of May. Hopefully we'll
It'll all be good. Well, I'll tell you my little story. I know I'll quickly share this with you, but there's been a bit of an incident over some of the clothing because for your Braveheart themed wedding. So some clothing appeared in our bedroom in the boudoir, hung up, and I thought, oh, new clothing has appeared. It's woman's clothing, and so Paula said, oh, I've got some clothes. I've got a few outfits because there's a couple of weddings. I went, oh, all right, okay. And I looked at them and I thought, you know, I know enough about being married, and I've survived this long to know that sometimes it's best just to shut up. So I looked at some of the clothes and I thought, I'm not sure about that. There's this blue and yellow thing that was happening, and it was like a trouser suit thing, and I was thinking, just shut up. And then a few days later, she said, "Oh, I'm going to take that back. Some of those clothes." And I went, "All right, okay." And I said, "Well, which one?" And she went, "Oh," I said, "Was it the blue one?" And she went, "Yeah, the blue one." I said, "Oh, the blue and yellowy one." Yeah, she went, "Yeah, that one." I went, "Oh, thank goodness," because I thought you were going to look like the Riddler out of Batman from the 1960s.
Oh, God.
And then she paused. And she said,
and then she smacked you one.
No, and then she said, "No, that's you're thinking of the purple and orange one." And I'd made a mistake. That was the one she was keeping, and I'm colourblind and I didn't know, so I'm in absolute yeah, what a putz. Total putz. So she's took it well, but she knows I'm an idiot, so that's fine. Anyway.
Well, exactly, yeah. I mean, she does. We all know you're into it. What I was going to say, she did actually mention it to me in conversation a few weeks ago, actually.
Right.
Because obviously you're, you know.
An idiot.
No, you're colourblind, so we did chat about colour combinations.
It's a genuine disability.
Thankfully, I'm dressing you for the wedding.
Oh, good. Your Braveheart themed wedding.
It's not Braveheart. Stop it.
Anyway.
Honestly.
Anyway,
we've had a drama. With the jackets.
Oh.
Yes, they didn't have enough jackets, so I've had to change jackets.
Oh.
So you won't be in blue. You'll be in grey, slate grey.
Oh, I quite like that one. I think it's my colour. It brings out my eyes.
Yeah. I think it does, yes. And plus, you won't really know what the colour is because you're colourblind.
Yeah.
Any hooser. Let's crack on, shall we,
yes.
with the evening's events?
Yes. So I got invited to speak to Betsy de Thierry. Thierry. I've forgotten how to pronounce it. That's embarrassing. And because I'd met her a long time ago and spoke briefly to her, and then I got sent a book about shame, and it was earlier in the year, and I'd kind of had a lot of books sent through, and I was kind of thinking, oh, another book, and I started to read this one, and I got halfway through the first page, and I had to stop because it was like a slap across the face, and I mentioned it in the interview. So I was really interested to talk to her about, because this idea of the impact of shame, because I think it's something that, I don't know about you, but more and more, shame seems to be kind of one of these issues that is just hovering in our family, in how we talk children. So, shall we cut to the chase, and we'll put on the interview with Betsy, and then maybe you've listened to it because you couldn't make it, and then we can maybe unpack some of that. Is there anything?
I think that's a good idea.
Okie dokie. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about tonight? I've got a few things. I think we were going to talk about some. Yeah.
Oh, are we?
Yeah, some.
Really?
I think we should. I think we should talk about the.
Yes.
Yes, the slightly difficult moments on
social media.
On the social media, we're dancing around.
Yes, we are. Yes.
But
I think we should. I think we need to talk about that.
Yeah, get the dirty water off our chests.
Get it out there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But press play now.
Today I'm speaking to Betsy de Thierry, and you've written a very interesting book on shame. And I was so hello, Betsy.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Nice to be here. I'm good, thank you very much.
We've had a very stressful technological few minutes, haven't we, trying to get to this point?
It's all good. We're here now.
Yes, and breathe. So you've written a book about shame. Can you briefly tell us about how you got to be who you are, and what led you to write a book about shame?
Yeah, great. So I trained as a psychotherapist and a primary school teacher at the same time back 25 years ago now, because I'm 47.
Right. That's a story, isn't it?
I've written a bunch of books that all explore trauma, complex trauma recovery, and shame. The book on shame came out really because that seemed to be a theme in everything I write about. So it just makes sense to put it all in one book.
And so, like you said, it's a theme, and isn't that a theme that drawing on your experience as a primary school teacher and your experience as a therapist, is that something that people keep returning to, or something that you see? Do people recognise it as shame, or?
I don't think it's recognised enough, because I think there's shame about shame.
Yep.
And I think there's a fundamental lack of understanding of how shame presents, and how shame is like this secret toxic poison of our soul. So I think there's a massive lack of understanding and a lack of recognition of the power of it. So no, very rarely, I think, does it come in explicitly into the therapy room. I think it's there implicitly all the time, with the turmoil and the struggle of self-worth, the turmoil and struggle of having needs, of being a human, and of course traumatized children, young people and adults. Shame is their protector. It's protected them, but it then, when they are in a safe place, it can stop them feeling alive. It can stop them connecting to others. It can cause huge isolation, and generally comes with huge amounts of coping mechanisms all attached to it.
I mean, I guess as you're saying that, I'm thinking actually before we even, because we use the word all the time, shame. What is shame then? You know, it's the question before the question.
Yeah, right. There's so many different definitions of shame, really. I don't know which my favourite is, but I don't know. Maybe we should quote a couple from the book.
I see what you did there.
First page. I know. I just thought, I'm not sure which my favourite one is. I keep sort of changing my mind on it. I say here that it's an intensely painful experience, the feeling of extreme embarrassment or humiliation, coupled with sudden, uncontrollable body responses, which might involve, and that lists off loads of stuff. I quite like that one, but I quite like Cosolino. He says that core shame is an instinctual judgment about the self, and it results in a sense of worthlessness, a fear of being found out, and a desperate striving for perfectionism. I think that's pretty good. Of course, Brené Brown's probably the most famous one, isn't she? Do you think?
Well, you sound like you're talking to me like I know what I'm talking about. I'm just an empty vessel. This is why I got you on, so you could talk about shame.
Okay. Well, Brené Brown, I think Brené Brown has done us a massive favour, because she's taken it out. She's made it I don't know, she's sort of talked about it to everybody, to all of mankind. She's gone, let's talk about vulnerability, let's talk about shame. And because shame hates being in the light, it wants to be in the darkness, it wants to be secret, it wants to be this secret poison. One of the antidotes, one of the ways that we can kind of recover from the impact of chronic shame is by talking about it, by acknowledging it, by seeing where it is. And so I think the fact that she's brought it out only in the last, 5-10 years is phenomenal. Her definition, because I can't help but quote people, it's too much fun.
Good.
Intensely painful feeling or experience of believing we are flawed and therefore not worthy of love and belonging. How cool is that?
It's raw, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really raw.
Really is. And of course it's you can't be traumatized and not have a sense of shame. It's not impossible. Shame just comes along as one of the ways that we're impacted by some kind of trauma.
Why do you think that is? What kind of unpack that for us? Because in your book you do that a little bit. You start to talk about the neurobiology and brains and things. So why do you think that? What is the link? Why is that our first point of call?
So I talk about the shame continuum because, as with everything, like actually everything to do with the world of kind of psychotherapy, I think everything's on a continuum, and I think that can help us immensely when we separate out things. It does my head in, actually, when we keep putting, trauma in one bracket. It's like trauma is way more complicated than that. We need to think of it as type 1, type 2, and type 3. We need to, the first thing we need to do when we think of a traumatized person is assess, but how large an impact is it? What is the severity of the traumatic experience that they've experienced? What's their surrounding, their environment like? So we can roughly have a good discussion on what the impact is. And shame's the same. So I've put in my book that I think there's exactly the same, type 1, type 2, and type 3. And type 1 shame, if a kid, I don't know, wet themselves or suddenly they stood up and their trousers fell off or something, and they had that extraordinary sense of very physiological shame where, they go bright red, they feel sick, their chest, feels tight, they just want to hide in a hole. Some kids go, I just wanted to die. And it's just that awful feeling of shame at that point. If immediately in a classroom context, the teacher could distract, so there's no witnesses to that experience of shame. And the other kids are distracted quickly, and then as they're distracted, another adult comes along and pulls up the trousers and goes, it's okay, Poppy, it's all right, and comforts and reassures. Then actually that kid will just go, flip, I never want to do that again, that was awful. But it won't have a long-term impact. There won't be any poison in their soul, there won't be any toxicity. It will just be a really nasty moment that's come and it's gone, because in the comfort and the reassurance of another adult, it's all over. Type 2 shame is when there are several shame experiences, several ongoing shame experiences that happen, but there isn't that adult that can reassure them. And so they're ending up not able to make sense of it, not able to process it, kind of going, what did I just feel? What's wrong with me? And I guess the big words that end up being located in the subconscious are, what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. But they don't know what it is. They don't know why they're having it. They don't know what's going on. And that begins to be toxic. That begins to impact their self-esteem. It begins to impact the way that they react with other people. They begin to dread the feeling of another shame experience. And so they either become avoidant.
It.
Yeah. So they're either avoidant or they're aggressive in preparation. By type 3 shame, that's when.
Can I stop you there? Because you're just making me really think out loud about that idea of children who are. There's not that adult who helps them through that, who doesn't keep them safe at that moment. Because we've all type 1 shame. I guess we all that's just a common experience. Type 2, you can start to see how children then begin to kind of go. They sort of step up and they start to push back, or they front up when things start to get close to that feeling. Interesting. So type 3 then, come on, give me it.
Well, so type 3 I think is essentially a traumatized person. I think if you've experienced so much shame from, either even in the womb, from birth, from very early life experience, where you're just not, you don't have that relationship of safety, you don't have that attachment figure that's being able to be consistently nurturing and attentive to your pre-verbal needs, then shame begins to develop, because there's that subconscious feeling of, oh flip, who am I, where am I alone, am I abandoned, like, help, what are these feelings, what's going on, help.
Yeah.
And so that's when I think, the core sense of, I'm just a bad kid, I'm just useless, I'm just weird, there's just something wrong with me, can develop.
Which is catastrophic, isn't it?
Yeah,
potentially.
Completely, absolutely.
And
yeah,
it's a lot of the community, obviously the adoption and fostering community, they work there living with children who all have kind of had this universal experience of trauma, however that may look, and separation and loss and grief. Yeah. So does that explain why it's kind of such a common theme? But I'm surprised that we don't talk about it, do we?
Indeed. Yeah, I know. It's such a thing, isn't it? I can't imagine a child, in all honesty, who has been adopted, who's been fostered, who's, currently in some kind of transient situation between relatives and friends, that doesn't actually have a core sense of shame, a core sense of what's wrong with me. Like, is there something bad about me? Am I actually worthy of love and care? So I think it should be something that is recognised. And of course, many caregivers end up in a state of shame, because I spoke to a parent yesterday, and, their almost instinctual response was, but does that make me a bad parent? And I'm like, can we just lose the good or bad parent thing? you know, like I'm a mum of 4. I still feel like I don't have a clue what I'm doing half the time. My eldest is 22, and the top 2 seem to have turned out all right. The other 2 are still at home, but I still don't feel like I know what I'm doing, because I don't think anyone does. Even if we're meant to be an expert in this field, we're humans, and we're working with humans. There seems to be such shame in parenting all the time.
That's a huge issue, because and that's compounded by children who are potentially operating out of shame, whose behaviour isn't standard. I use quote marks.
Absolutely.
Then they feel shame because their children are not good children.
Absolutely. And then they can't talk about it, because shame makes you silent. Shame makes you withdraw or struggle to verbalise. So I don't know whether earlier when you said about the neuroscience of it, whether you wanted me to mention the threat response and
please
between that, because I think that is quite critical. And I guess it's becoming more and more popular to talk about the triune brain theory of McLean, and whatever you want to call it. The kind of the understanding of the threat response, and I think a lot of people are familiar with it, which is in very quick CBeebies language. When we feel threat, I actually, all my simple guides, before they're published, they're actually called the CBeebies Guide too.
It helps.
I'm just trying to simplify stuff. Essentially, we have a 3-part brain, and our brain stem is our primitive brain, and that's the part of our brain that helps us breathe and regulates our temperature and that kind of thing, but also has the so when a baby, if I was holding a baby right now in my arms and suddenly the door slammed, then it would show the startle reflex. Little arms would go up with a like that. Yeah. And that's the threat response. And we still have it now. In fact, to be honest, if somebody slammed the door now, I'd still potentially do that a little bit.
It's a response, isn't it? It's a reaction rather than a response.
It is. It's a threat response. The problem with that is it's not understood enough. And so the threat response in the brainstem kicks off a whole load of other things, which includes in the middle brain, or our limbic brain, or our emotional brain, or relational brain, whatever you want to call it. That middle section has little amygdalas, which are our fear center or our emotion center, and they alert the whole body to that sense of threat, which causes all sorts of things to happen, such as adrenaline and cortisol start pumping around, giving us extra strength, extra energy. But I guess the most catastrophic situation that's still not understood enough by teachers particularly is that then the prefrontal cortex goes offline, and that's the part of the brain that's responsible for thinking and being rational and reasonable and intelligent and
consequences.
Yeah, all of that
working that stuff out.
Yeah, right. So we know that in a classroom, if a child suddenly feels a sense of threat, which could be anything from a smell to footstep sounds to the sound of a siren going past to the feeling of shame, it kicks off that threat response.
So I was thinking about this, and obviously it's the evolution of all, but what is the function of shame?
Yeah, that's a really good point. The function of shame is, I think, an incredible lifesaver. It's like every coping mechanism we have. Every single one that we have actually saves our lives. And shame immediately has like an instinctual response that enables a child to quickly withdraw, to quickly disconnect, to quickly not have to feel some of those overwhelming experiences. It enables it causes a child to sometimes lie, to sometimes withdraw and not pursue a relationship. It causes a child to not speak out, which are all awful things. But in the short term, in the midst of a traumatic experience like abuse or rape or something dreadful like that, it actually can save the life of that child.
It's like a shield, a temporary shield.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. As with all our coping mechanisms, in the short term, they're brilliant, they're life-changing. But if we don't recognise and acknowledge them in the long term, they end up becoming toxic.
Well, I'll be honest, I started to read your book a few weeks ago, and which I have to say is a really good book. It is a simple guide. It should be called The Idiot's Guide to Shame. CBeebies Guide to Shame. I started to read it, and I got to the end of your first page, and I had to put it down.
Right.
Which is me unpacking a bit of my childhood, and I thought, I feel actually quite uncomfortable going on at this point. So I put the book down, and I thought, wow, I hadn't maybe the first time I realised that actually some of the stuff that I experienced, and I had a pretty average childhood, but we've all had unhelpful moments in our childhood, and I realised that some of those really unhelpful moments were still hovering around. The minute we started to talk about that, and I thought, I realised that is still raw. 30, 40 years on, it's raw. And I went, I need to go away and lie down in my dark room and listen to Whale's song.
Amazing.
But I think that's probably true of anyone who would read this book or starts to think about their lives, and a lot of us, not everyone, but a lot of people. It's such a potent emotion.
It's painful, and I do think it's the only emotion that just immediately, so instinctively makes us want to hide. Withdrawing from people, that it's such a massive physiological experience along with an emotional experience that is so shocking.
And when we first started to talk about it, you talked about it almost like a character, like a personality, and I thought that was really interesting. You talked in terms of this, like this monster creature.
That's funny.
Well, no, you just said, and I just thought, that's. And sometimes people talk about trauma like that. They kind of take the trauma out of a person and talk about the impact of trauma is doing this in our family. And I thought shame is a bit like that as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are we turning this into a therapy session?
Yeah, no, I'm just fascinated. That's fascinating. I don't think there's a human alive that hasn't been impacted by shame at some point in a way that still sort of sits somewhere.
Yeah. So tell me about antidotes to shame then. Come on, where do we start? I mean, is that a big depends?
No, I think it's all the same. I mean, ultimately, it's the same as trauma in the sense that fundamentally the thing that really helps is relationship. It's about emotional connection, emotional safety. In fact, I do consultancy for all sorts of interesting people, and I think it's anonymous and confidential enough to say it was an organisation in Brazil yesterday that were Skyping me and asking for help with their work with sexually exploited young ladies, and it was interesting because they're not kind of clinicians. They don't have a background in all of that stuff, and they're really on the cutting edge of helping kids. And I'd explained to them the last Skype session a couple of months ago about emotional safety and emotional connection.
Yeah.
So I had to explain about physical safety along with so emotional safety in a physical setting, so like a room where they feel safe with bean bags and sensory experiences, along with a human that they connect to, and how the two sit parallel. And then I was explaining about attunement and how important attunement is, and obviously that's a word that is not always familiar to people, but how attunement builds emotional connection, and that's like tuning in to another person to wonder, be curious about what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, what's going on for them right now. And that tuning in and noticing their physiological responses to things, whether it's just a tiny little, shift of their eyebrow or glazing over look or discomfort. When we can tune in to another human, that attunement builds an emotional connection that enables that person to feel safe enough that actually we can comfort them when they feel shame. We can externalize it rather than let it stay internal and toxic. So I would say the first antidote, the first recovery thing is without doubt a relationship with somebody who can be attuned, emotionally connected, understands emotional safety, so therefore is predictable, consistent, empathetic, kind, nurturing, and somebody that the kid or the young person feels emotional connection and safety with. So that's number one.
That makes sense. Absolutely. I'm just kind of thinking the practical realities of that in people's lives, when, especially for parents or carers or family, whoever. That is, and then we're back to shame, aren't we, for parents and carers? And that's really, it makes sense.
It's a big ask.
It's a big ask, That's what I'm trying to say. It's a big ask. And at different times when children are being spiky. That is a big ask.
Absolutely, it's a massive ask, and I think with everything in life, part of our humanity is recognizing that we can be as consistent as we can. But I'm a real believer in growing kids up where there's language around. I've always, as a mum, I'm often like, kids, I was awful just then. I'm so sorry I was grumpy. I'm so sorry you tried to talk to me, and I just needed to. I'm a completer finisher, so I wanted to finish that email. I'm sorry, kids. Will you forgive me? I was an idiot. I think that kind of language in our homes is so important, because that models us being human, and therefore it reduces shame immediately, that we all make mistakes, that we all get it wrong. That
sort of normalising that ineptitude.
Absolutely, because we're always going to get something wrong. That is part of life. And yet, if you look at social media and if you read theoretical books all the time, you could be led to believe that actually everybody else other than us looks pretty perfect, is pretty perfect, and is doing everything perfectly, and that just increases shame.
There's a lot to go. There's so much to go on. That's just stage one. I guess that this stuff, there's no 8-week therapy session and we're all tickety-boo, is there? It's a lifetime, isn't it? So what's step 2 then? 3 steps to a shameless life. I think number 1 would be definitely the relationship thing. Number 2 would be something around normalising our emotional responses, normalising emotions, normalising reactions, normalising humanity. To try and model to children and young people what it's like to be human and to have emotions, and I also think shame needs to be talked about and modelled. So I think it's important to, when kids see us mess up in some way, to actually go, I think I might have felt a bit of shame there, which is why I didn't respond how I wanted to. I'm sorry if you just saw me respond in a spiky way, or respond in a defensive way, or respond by being silent and walking away. I think that could have been my sense of shame. Wow, I don't think I've ever spoke to my children in relation to how, if I felt shame. Wow.
Yeah, but I think that's such a great thing for them to hear, because then we're modelling to them that, they're going to feel shame, but actually if they could have the emotional language to be able to go, just then, I think, I did that awful thing because actually it was shame. I was protecting myself, and I don't want to do that again.
That's really good. Now you're really making me think about identifying shame in myself. When I operate out of that. Oh yeah. Ooh. Oh, I'm gonna have to go and lie down after this and have a really big think about myself.
I think shame's like a slippery fish. It's kind of like you can kind of find it and then you lose it again. You kind of like it's like a light bulb moment that then quickly goes off and goes on and goes off again. Because it's you can identify it and then it's almost like it's gone again, because it's so implicit and enmeshed in so much of who we are and how we respond to each other. It's so central to so many of our relationship and our interactions, I think. But when we can expose it, when we can see it, when we can identify it, the relief, the sense of freedom and peace and relief that people have, I think, is massive.
Yeah, you are really, you kind of really making me think very carefully about myself, because I think that's the start point for all of our parenting, isn't it, as well? That has to be the start point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, crikey. I'm going to have a serious talk with myself. So after that, what else? That's two kind of really key elements. What else?
I think, one of the things that is critical to trauma recovery and shame recovery, which are so entwined, I think, is I train a lot of people around the country, and one of the things I love saying, I mean, some of it, I'm just training, but one thing I love saying is no child on earth is a bad kid. They don't exist. There is no bad kid on earth. And, sometimes I look at certain sectors of our children's workforce, and I won't say which ones, but they do kind of raise their eyebrows as if, really? And I'm like, no kid was born bad. Nobody. It's coping mechanisms. It's survival. And I think, again, when kids, particularly traumatized children and children that have got shame stuff going on a lot, they pick up our vibe more than our words. And I think when our vibe is such, I don't know what other word to use for vibe, but like when the sense of us is one that we believe the best in them, we believe that they've done really well surviving. They've survived stuff that they shouldn't have had to survive, and we respect them for that, and we think they're great kids. But we just want to help them with some of these behaviours that they don't need to have anymore. That sense of respect, that sense of separating out the these are your behaviours, but this isn't who you are. Yeah, I think is critical for us as adults. Otherwise, we end up in a shame place, and we end up in a trauma place, and we end up overwhelmed and go, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to get out of this? But when we can see the gold in the child, when we can see the beauty in them, the brilliance in them, and separate that from their trauma symptoms and their shame symptoms, I think that's critical.
This stuff is really fundamental, isn't it? It's at the very core of who we are and how we see ourselves, which then is linked into the whole attachment and internal working models, all that. And I use a quote that says, "We feel guilt for what we do and shame for who we are." Yeah, totally. And you go, "Oof, that does sting. That really stings." It's been really interesting talking about that. So what do you do? I mean, what is your day job? I know you actually I confess that I met you on the day of Brexit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was a Westminster and I was there.
Were you? How funny. I remember that day. It was a very solemn day, and everyone was solemn, and we were trying to run a workshop on trauma and stuff.
And we were all traumatized, or most of us, for lots of different reasons. But what do? You've got a network, haven't you?
I do all sorts of things. Yeah, Trauma Recovery Centre is a charity that exists to give trauma recovery focus. So I don't even use trauma informed anymore. It's kind of one step more in terms of specialised trauma recovery. We're all about recovery, not management. We're all about doing heart surgery, not sticking plasters, really, over really getting to the root cause of some of the behaviours and the symptoms of trauma and getting them better. So we have TRCs, or trauma recovery centres, in Bath, Bristol, Bradford, Guernsey, Oxford. There's somewhere I've forgotten, which is awful. Anyway, 6 centres, 6 cities, and then Ed Sykes, and I have a 14-day certificate in therapeutic mentoring where I have lots of adoptive parents, actually, and foster parents and social workers and paediatricians and GPs and psychotherapists and all sorts that come over 6 months, 14 days to just really get trauma recovery and what that looks like, which is really fun. I've got 25 graduating tomorrow.
Excellent. That's reasons to be optimistic. I mean, I guess, are you optimistic? Do you believe that? Because I think a lot of people, when you're living it, you're enduring it, it's your day by day by day living with children or young people who are traumatized. Does it get better? Can it get better?
Yes, totally. Yeah, and that's why I love my job. That's why. So I am a psychotherapist as well, and I see clients, and I, line manage and supervise loads of staff, seeing real day-to-day clients. I'm not a theorist. I'm not just stuck writing books. I'm very much, in the mess of it, I think is the only word, in the real pain and trauma and turmoil of it. And we cry together as staff here, and we laugh together, and we celebrate together, and we're with the parents crying, and we have so many stories of hope. And then the parents and carers and kinship carers and everybody else, their courage to keep going in the face of, often being kicked and spat and thumped and hated and rejected and it's just awful. But getting through that, keeping going, and I love nothing more than seeing all of those symptoms of trauma reduce and seeing relationships built and reconnections and connections. It's just amazing. I love it. Kids learning again, being able to engage in education, being curious, being interested in life, not just stuck in survival mode. Yeah, I have a lot of hope.
That's a great place to kind of draw this to a conclusion. Thank you very much, and I would encourage people to read this book, because I think that it's a little book. It's a great toilet book, if I can say. It's one of those books that you could put by the toilet.
It's a tiny weeny little book.
And it's right to the point. It's there's no flowery language. It just says, it gets to the crux of it, which I think I find very helpful in this world of many words and theoretical books. Let's cut to the chase. Well, Betsy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you for your perseverance through technological soup. And
amazing.
And I wish you all the best with all of your work.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a delight.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
What did you think of that then?
Do you know what? I get it. I do get it. But it's another thing that we have to consider in our parenting. So, when I think back to 13 years ago when we first adopted, and we were going attachment, and social workers going, what is that? And now we're talking about ACEs and trauma, and and I'm not dissing it. I'm really not dissing it, because I think that it's relevant. But now, shame's been about a little bit longer than ACEs and trauma, and in terms of us discussing them like we are, and CPV and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But it's just another thing to consider, and the different levels of it, and working out what shame, and like you said in the interview, I can't remember the exact words you used, but it's guilt or shame, and how do you decide which is which? And like you, I kind of consider whether, when I feel shame, do I realize I feel shame? I don't think I do, actually. Because I've not really thought about it like that. I just think, well, I've done that and it didn't work out, so I'll just move on, kind of thing. But it doesn't affect me in the same way that it might affect someone else. Yeah. I don't know. It's a confusing one, this shame malarkey.
Yeah, I see so often people talk about their children being shamed or being overwhelmed with shame, and I just thought that I've never been on any training, and I started to put together a few slides just for some training I do, but then realised that, oh wow, this stuff is kind of at the very core of who we are and our children are, because children are sort of egocentric. The world revolves around them. I don't know. I found it really helpful, and it really made me frame some of the behaviour I see, which is all about how my child and children are perceived by other people, how that then makes them act a certain way, how it makes them feel exposed, and then how their reaction to that exposure. So I really, and as I said in this book, I read the first page and I went, oh crikey, that's just too close to the knuckle for me. But I'm an emotional pygmy, as we all know.
You are. You are, bless you.
I am.
Maybe not externally, but internally you are.
Yeah. But, we do have a copy of the book to give away, though.
Ooh.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, we're just super amazing on this podcast, aren't we? We give things away.
It's like Noah's house party. It's
I've got things to give away. It's called Fraser, Brandon, and Jacob. Can I give them away on the podcast?
Absolutely, yeah.
And Tris, my fiance.
Fiance. Oh, wouldn't it be so nice just for the weekend?
And if anyone wants to give away a window cleaner, a cleaner,
you'll take them.
A gardener,
Swapsies.
I'm quite happy to take them for the weekend as well. Yeah, exactly. We could do a little bit of that. Yeah,
that would be wonderful. That would be really good.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted your book flogging there, as in giving it away.
No, I'll put it up when I post this on. When this goes up and we post it, then we'll put it on and we'll tweet out and do the same retweet thing, because that helps, doesn't it?
It really, I love reading some of the messages back when people are really grateful to win books, because I never win anything, and it's lovely when people thank us and they're like, oh, it's great, thank you, just thank you kind of thing. It's just nice to get that kind of interaction with them, because I do read some of the private messages we get on Twitter.
It's always nice to have interaction with the listener.
Exactly.
It's good.
Yeah.
So we'll give that away, and we've got a few interesting podcasts coming up. We've got the talk that I did at the Great North East Conference, and I've got a couple of books to go away for that, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And
fabulous.
Yes.
Is that the one that I didn't get invited to? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, sorry.
Well, you could have come and paid. No one's stopping you.
I could have worked for you. I could have been your little bitch that day.
You could have, pardon your French, you filthy, potty-mouthed man.
Yeah.
No, I think we should talk about the thorny issue of the relationship between adoptees and adopters on social media.
I think I agree with you on this one. I really do.
But
I think that no, there's no but. Actually, there is a but, isn't there?
I think there is a but.
There is a but. You're right. There is a but. I've just checked myself, and I'm just, I was just going to say my but is sitting on a chair.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you my but. My but is that, the power dynamic is that we have no one to push back against our voices. So it's two adopters saying what they don't like about how things have gone down. So that's the power dynamic is set against us. So.
Yeah. And my but is that it's not about relevant shaming anybody or saying that anybody's done wrong, because it's not. I guess for me, why I want to talk about it is the kind of
it was very personal.
Yeah, it was very personal, but there's another side to it as well. There's a side to it that is all about I am not those people's parent. So yes, I what?
No, I just thought, that's quite. No, you keep going.
No. The reason I'm saying that is because we all have a different journey, and it's never. I get so much out of listening to adoptees who are willing to speak, because I think it's really relevant. We need to know how they feel about things. We need to know how we can do better. We need to know what we can try and change for them. We need to know how they want to be treated. My older two children will not speak about adoption. They, as far as they're concerned, this is how it is, and they get on with their lives, and it's ups and downs, and all the roundabouts. Jacob, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. He will talk about it, and we listen to him, and we try and get everything as close to how he wants it as possible. But 13 years ago, that wasn't the case. 13 years ago, we just wanted to be parents, and we have gone through. And I hate that term journey, but we have gone through a journey as parents, because actually it's not as we expected it to be, and that's fine. I can deal with that. I deal with it every day, and I've come to terms with that, and that's all good. My point is that others may not have had the same experience. They may not have on reflection, they may have experienced terrible experiences. I can't say terrible parenting and stuff because I don't know, because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But every journey is different, and there's also the impact of whatever happened before, then the impact of coming into a strange family. Because I don't think that adoption, as adopters, I don't think we realise when we first have our family placed with us just how much of an impact that has on those children.
Yes.
Because it's about us at that point, and what I mean by that is we obviously want to have children, but we're trying to fill something that we want. So therefore, the route is, either IVF or surrogacy or I don't know, adoption. I don't know what the other options might be, but we've chosen that
route.
Particular route. And at that point, on that day where you meet your children or they're placed and they move in with you, that is what you're fulfilling, is your need to do such a thing. Take me back 2 years before that, 3 years before that, it was impossible for me to be a parent. So, it kind of changed within a few years. Mm-hmm. And it's ever evolving, because I love my kids. Of course I do. Blimey, I couldn't live without them. But there's so many layers to them, so much complexity. That word.
Complexity.
Complexities that surround all of it, and we are such an unusual family compared to others. So when I perhaps talk to friends about experiences and stuff, they don't understand it, which is, I think, why we get so much out of our own community, because we're able to share.
Yes.
And that's the relevant part of that, isn't it? In the same way that the adoptee community, they probably have relevant experiences that are similar, even though each of their journeys are different in terms of what they've experienced. However, and this is my big thing, however, I do think that there's a way in which we can all interact that's respectful. And that's not been my experience of late. And it's not just, I'm not singling anybody out. I'm just saying that my experience is that there's just this kind of, it's just not a mutual respect thing. And I don't know if you've got any other words that you can.
No, it's tricky, isn't it? Well, I think that you're right, that it has felt it's been very caustic. But I think that, even in saying that, there's a sense of me kind of reinforcing this the position of adopters, is one of power. It's one
Apparently.
of... No, it is.
Well, it is, yeah.
It absolutely is.
Right.
We hold the choice. We had that choice that no one else had. So everyone else in the triangle, if it's not a triangle, it's a square, because there's social services. But anyway, I
think it's more of a what's it called?
Venn diagram.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. But I think that the issue is that we still hold the control and the power. We always had that choice. And for us to say, I'll only listen to you if you're respectful, then potentially reinforces that power dynamic. You can, but I've thought long and hard, because, there was some really, some interesting words used. That's fine, I'm a big boy. But I thought, you can talk to me like that, and I'm not going to ask you to change, but don't ask me to listen.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And so then I have to ask the question, because for us, we're on a kind of a campaigning mission, aren't we?
Yeah.
Which is probably bigger than our own families.
Yeah.
But maybe they're on a different journey. What they want to achieve is not, maybe they don't want to achieve anything. They just want to say what they want to say.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of thinking, from my campaigning point of view, that's not going to win any friends. But that's my campaigning head. So if you just want to say what you want to say, fine, say it. But I may not listen. That's the crux of it. And if you don't want me to listen, you probably don't want me to listen. But if that reinforces your view of me, that's fine. Because they have no choice. My children never had any choice.
Yeah, and nor did mine.
And even when Kirsty... I've just said my daughter's name. Even when my eldest daughter and Kirsty, Corey and Rebecca, they are out, sat before...
You just outed them.
I've just outed them. Went before the judge, and the judge said, do you want to be adopted? what choice did they have?
Yeah.
They made no informed choice. They made a choice. They just went along with each other or the circumstances. So I think it is a really complex dynamic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And of course, we're talking about apples and oranges, roundabouts and windmills.
Square pegs and round pegs.
Well, yeah. When we talk about birth parents, we're talking about every birth parent is unique. Every adoptee is unique. Every adopter is unique.
Yeah.
So when, again, and this is maybe a reflection on the adopter community, is that really hacked off with some of that stuff going on, that, or all as adopters are treated like this? Well, no, you're not. Some are. Yeah. And even I was the one that kind of upset me a bit, was someone sort of highlighted a comment, and it was anonymous, so no one was hurt, but it highlighted a daft comment that a prospective adopter had made. But the minute you do that, then you stop them being an adopter, and the minute you're rude and aggressive, you stop them listening, so they're just going to do it. So I just think that we've all got, I think that all I can do is control me. All you can do is control you.
Exactly. And I think that my experience lately is quite bizarre, actually, because it kind of came as a bit of a curveball, because it's not somebody that I knew. It was around something that actually isn't related to adoption, which is quite bizarre. And also, I mean, the thing about social media is, we've all got different settings and all that sort of stuff. So, like, if I don't follow somebody, then I don't get notifications from them.
That's how that
works. The accusation of not interacting with them, not engaging with them, and all that sort of stuff, and it just kind of, it then snowballs into something that it's not. And basically the interaction then becomes quite abusive in some ways. I'm not dwelling on it anymore, because it's happened, it's gone, it's in the past. I would, anybody who wants to interact with me, we can do, but please, just bear in mind that I have feelings as well. I have a heart. I have had experiences, maybe not like yours, but I've had experiences that actually affect me day to day, or once in a month, or once in every 6 months, or on an anniversary or whatever. It doesn't matter. But those experiences are my lived experiences as well. So to bring those up in a fashion that's not, that's just not respectful, I guess.
Oh yeah. Well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what words to use on it, because it was very upsetting. It was extremely upsetting. But I've had that experience, and that's it. And I will always, anybody can come to me if they're involved in the adoption community, whether it's a birth parent, whether it's an adoptee, whether it's an adopter, and I will always support them, always, always, always. But please don't assume that things are happening because I can't see them. If I can't see them, I can't do it.
Yeah, that's true. It has been tricky.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating. But it's not. I'm not the only person. You're not the only person.
No.
There's been blogs written about it. I've seen a tweet today about people blocking adoptees. I mean, I haven't, as far as I'm aware, I've not blocked anybody in that respect. But it can happen because actually,
Well, I will if I have to. I don't, it's, yeah. I mean, to be honest with you,
I just want to make myself feel safe. So if I need to, then I will, lock my account like I have done recently. But we are all different, and people have the right to do whatever they want on social media. Whether it's no, they don't have the right to do everything on social media.
Well, not without consequences.
No, exactly. But if you want to filter out your social media, then you do.
Yeah,
that's it. And that's your right.
I guess one of the sadnesses, though, that for a long time it's been a very safe, positive place.
Yeah, exactly.
And we just maybe all need to get a bit savvy to that.
Yeah, but also, and this is one thing that I wanted to say about all of this, there's a new curve coming, isn't there? And when I say a new curve, I don't mean that it's not been there, just that we're actually talking about it and we're doing something about it, where we are attempting this opportunity to engage with all, the whole adoption triangle, square, rectangle, pyramids, whatever. Yeah, exactly, whatever we want to call it. And I think that is what we need to focus on, and bringing all that together. So, I know that Mummy Tiger, as an example, prime example of someone who's really breaking ground with that kind of first stroke birth parent engagement or contact or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Relationship. Yeah, exactly. Relationship. And in actual fact, it's supporting her and her children, and their children actually, because they are their children, whether it's legally or biologically or whatever, it's still their children. And I think that actually that is the curve that we need to start taking, because I think that's really important, because I think that we've been so scared of it in the past. It won't fit every family, of course it won't, because nothing is the same. But what I'm saying is that I think that it's relevant. It's now. It's something that Beth Neal is doing a lot of research on,
which is
a
nice link, because I was speaking.
Oh, is it? Did I do a nice link?
You did. It's a beautiful segue, because there's a conference, isn't there, in a couple of weeks, which comes once again you're ruining my life, because I got a free ticket,
and so did I.
Yeah, but I got the offer of travel expenses as well.
Excuse me, I was going to be on the panel.
Oh, well, I was going to be the official recorder. So you've knacked it. You've totally knacked my life. You've lost me a job. You've ruined me an opportunity. But anyway, we have salvaged from that we're going to hopefully get some recordings from the day of this event and get Beth to come on and sort of curate those for us. So I was speaking to some of the people who are going to do the recording today, and we're just kind of talking through what we'd like to get. So that's
that'd be quite good. It'd be nice.
Yeah,
it'd be nice for it to be accessible to people, wouldn't it?
That's the key.
Rather than them having to pay all that kind of, because let's face it, these kinds of events aren't cheap, are they? Because they're not cheap to put on, whether we like it or not. I know that some people can do it on a.
I think there's a culture, isn't there? There's an expectation of cost as well. But
there's also an expectation of what you get when you go there as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
I know that from organising some events.
It's complicated, isn't it? But
it is
the frustration that one part of the podcast's kind of modus operandi is to spread the joy around, which we love to do.
We love to do. Spread the joy.
Yeah, it's all laughs and happiness and that.
I sometimes wonder if it's joy or if it's actually manic behaviour that we spread.
There's a fine line.
I'm not quite sure.
Very fine line.
There is a very fine line.
I have recorded an interview with an adoptee. I met a guy, and I guess this is I don't want to go on too long, because I'm aware we prattle on too long, but I'm really nervous around getting adoptees onto the podcast, and in the sense that I don't want to be this person who controls their voices. So, but I have had a few people come to me, and I've reached out. That's an awful phrase. I reached out. So, and sort of asked people to maybe say some stuff about adoption, not necessarily voices that we would have heard before, or voices that we would necessarily I don't know,
would hear.
Yeah. So I've recorded the first one.
I'm going to buy in there, because I'm going to stop you. The reason I'm going to stop you is I want to explain to all three listeners, when it comes to the adopter and the foster care stories, a question is asked and it's unedited, unless there's a technical hitch or something like that. Yeah. So we ask the question and they answer it, and it's all their own words. Yeah. So I just want to be clear, when the stories that you hear when we punt out the adopter and foster care stories are all their own words. There's no kind of, let's have a long chat about this and then you can tell me what you think about it. It's right. Yeah. Here's a question and this is your answer, and it's unedited the majority of the time, unless there's an issue. I think that's the key part of the adoptee voice. Is actually we could do it in a way that's actually quite respectful to them, to say, okay, what is the kind of, as adopters, we want to know specific answers, specific questions. Sorry,
answers to questions.
Not coming out right. Yeah, answers to questions. Yeah, because we want to learn. Yeah. But equally, that story will be there will be more in that. There'll be more material in that than what we'll be expecting.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I think you're putting down the kind of the premise behind it, because actually we do a lot. That is one thing that we do is, it's totally unedited unless it waffles on for 25 hours.
Well, no, I mean, what I always say to people is that, look, the only time it's your story, you tell your story.
Yeah.
So when people have perhaps strayed on to telling their children's stories, I've pulled them back. I've edited that out. I've not stopped them. I've just edited out, but then I've always given them everything that. When we do like an interview with like Betsy today, I will just say, "Oh, thanks very much. Anything you want me to change? No, fine."
Yeah.
But then with the adopters or or foster carers, I've always edited it and sent it to them and said, "You can change anything. And if you want to say I don't want to put it out, fine." And so occasionally we've changed things. But
I just want to be clear with when it comes to the adoptee voice thing that we're now embarking on. We are literally embarking on it because. We just want to give them that platform because we want to learn and we want them to be able to share and all those kind of things, all those selfish things, but also all those opportunities for adoptees to be able to say this is a reality of being an adoptee because you're on the other side. So
and I'm not even going to curate guests really. I don't want to say you can and you can't, and I'm. Potentially people could. To be honest, I feel like with the adoptive voices, when I ask people questions, I don't know what people are going to say.
Yeah.
That's fine. And there's been times I've really thought, "Oh, I could just change that," and I thought, "No, this is who you are."
It's raw. It's raw, isn't it? It's raw.
Yeah.
And I remember back to the first. I think it was foster care voice you did. Foster care story that you did, the first one, and we tweaked it, didn't we? Because it seemed like it was an interview. And we wanted not to have it as an interview. We just wanted that one voice and for that to be the thread throughout it. So and I think that it's quite respectful of each individual's experience.
I've recorded the first one, which is sort of a bit more interviewee because that's what the person wanted, but that's what they wanted. That's how they wanted it to play out. So, but we'll see how it goes.
Anyway. Yeah,
anywho.
Sorry, I just wanted to be clear on the premise behind all three of those kind of different things, so that people knew that we weren't, it wasn't kind of, an audience with.
I haven't. So I feel like that's been a very sensible podcast. I don't feel we've had.
It has.
Yeah.
I know.
Maybe,
what's that all about?
Yeah, maybe even a little bit dull. No.
Never dull.
Never dull.
Never dull.
Never dull. Okay, right. Shall we call it quits? And we've got anything else coming up?
I'm bored of you now, anyway. So.
I've been bored of you for episodes.
I know.
We're going to talk international adoption in a few weeks, aren't we?
We are, which will be really interesting actually, because I think that's again. No, see, I'm looking forward to it because I think that when people think of international adoption, they think, well, I'll just go to whichever country to get a child, and it does not work like that. And this is where I wish we had access to people who were thinking about adoption, who were maybe thinking down that route. And I'm really looking forward to speaking to.
Are you? I'm terrified. I am terrified because I have very.
I think this is an opportunity for us to
feelings.
Well, but this is the thing. We need to. This needs to be. This is a discussion point, isn't it? Because people need to understand international adoption. They need to understand what is involved in adopting from overseas.
Oh.
But we also. Oh God! Oh, you look pained now. You look pained.
I'm really worried that I'm going to sit in the corner and just say things like yeah, but.
Yeah, but that's not. We're here to find out more about it rather than say but.
Okay. Well, Well, that's in a couple of weeks.
This is a fact-finding interview with the new chief exec of International Adoption Centre, who's Satwinder Sandhu. Who is we'll let him tell his story, but
Well, I think
it's going to be a good. It's going to be a good one, Al.
Excellent.
Stop. Don't go Paxman on his butthole. All right, that's all I'd say.
We may not speak to people before your wedding, so. If that's the case, Scott, I hope that it all goes well. And,
blah, blah, blah,
and I haven't prepared your speech, and I'm not going to say what you want. So there you are. I might record it though and play it back to the pod.
Play it on.
Yeah,
Put it on the big screen, love.
On the big screen. Yeah. But you have, I hope your preparations in the next couple of weeks go fine, and I shall see you on the day. I'll be the one dressed as Mel Gibson.
Yes.
Blue face, the whole lot.
Dearie me. Help, people, help, send help, quickly, urgently. Yeah.
Excellent.
Au revoir.
Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi.
As always, the pleasure was all yours.